Okay, so now you should know some basic techniques for processing your recorded audio. This segment will pertain to its use in making machinima. Working with the source engine has some advantages when it comes to audio. You can insert your own audio files inside the game, and the engine can be made to automatically process the audio in 3D space. So the more dialogue and sound effects you can get inside the engine, the richer your soundscape will be. Now this rule has some exceptions, so I'm going to talk about what's best to play inside the game and what's best left to adding in during the editing process. Unless you have a special situation which makes this impractical, it's usually best to insert all of your dialogue inside the game. This is useful for timing the dialogue in your scenes, and is necessary for lip-syncing animations anyway. Your audio will be played back in-game relative to the character who is speaking, so you'll also have a nice stereo effect. This is actually more sophisticated than what most Hollywood movies do. Most spoken dialogue in surround sound movies are mixed into one single channel and come through the center speaker. You can always mix down your audio to mono sound if you want to mimic this, but why do that when you can get quality stereo sound with no extra work? I find simple sound effects are another good thing to have in the game as well. Things like footsteps, someone knocking on a door, shuffling, anything that's relatively short and will only be heard briefly. Again, the engine will track all of the sounds in 3D space and give you the best mix possible relative to your recording position in the game. That said, there are some sounds you do not want to have playing back inside the game. The rule of thumb here is that any sound that's going to carry over from one camera shot to another is typically best left to adding during the editing process. For example, say you're filming in a city environment and you want some background city sounds like cars moving, a crowd talking indistinctly, maybe a faint police siren. If you record that in the game, that greatly reduces your flexibility in the editing process. Because say in editing you decide you want a scene to end 3 seconds sooner or decide to cut one camera shot altogether. If you record all this background audio, it will cut that along with your footage, and you'll hear this obvious gap in the sound when you switch camera angles. The same applies to anything with reverb. You don't want to hear your character's voice start echoing in one scene, then stop abruptly as soon as you change camera angles. This is definitely true of music, and sometimes spoken narration, which is meant to be omniscient and not part of an actual character. Any sound that is going to carry over from one camera shot to the next should generally be added in the editing process and left out of the game. But for everything else, you may as well take advantage of the free positional mixing you get from filming it in a game engine. Okay, so the next question is, how do you get your audio files in the game? Well, to do this, you're going to want to use script files, which is what I'm going to cover now.